evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Mahoning Drive-In Theater, the largest single-screen drive-in in the United States. We're certainly glad you could be with us this evening, and don't forget the concession stand is open with all kinds of great things to eat and drink.
89.3 Mahoning Drive-In Radio, your old friend Virgil back once again for another exciting episode of the podcast. As you guys know, the only podcast dedicated to the love and revival of our beloved drive-in culture. Joined as always by my co-host and general manager extraordinaire, Mark. Say hello, my friend.
Hello.
It has been too long. Also joined by King Jeff, projectionist and owner at the Mahoning Drive-In Theater. Say hello, Jeff.
What it is,
my brother, what it is. Man, we are in the off season and I am going through that phase where I really start to miss you guys. I'm really missing you guys. And that's not just to you two guys on the call, but to everybody out there listening. It is like a piece of our heart is just, it's taken during the off season. It really is a shift going from the ultra social life into kind of the normalcy of life, I guess we could call it. What would you
boring part is what you're trying to say. The boring part.
Yeah, in comparison to the madness at the Mahoning, it's tough to explain it any other way. But it's been a while since we recorded, and we wanted to give you guys a little bit of updates on what's been going on. So I guess right off the top, Mark has been an international traveler. As you guys know, Mark is our Uber producer with the Patreon as well as the podcast. So with him being out of town for 3 weeks, I guess, almost 3 weeks, we had a little bit of a mini hiatus. But Mark, why don't you fill people in on what only looked like the greatest trip imaginable?
It was insane. I never thought I would do this, but Val, being Italian, of Italian descent from Italy originally, she made it happen. And we went to Italy for 2.5 weeks. It was Val, her father, and I initially. And then after the first week, he left, and then we kept touring. So we went to Rome and Bologna and Turin or Torino and Parma and back to Rome again in that amount of time. And it was amazing. It was a very film-centric tour of Italy. We went to Cinecittà Studios and took the tour there. We went to the Cinemateca, National Cinematheque in Bologna, which was amazing. Yes. And we went to the National Museum of Cinema in Turin, which was amazing. And they had a Tim Burton exhibit there with all these original props and artifacts and sketches and you name it from his films.
That looked so cool.
It was amazing. And one of my favorite things, this is like the highlights version. I'm not going to bore everybody with what I did in my summer vacation for the next I easily could, but we'll save that. We did a post on our main Facebook where I post pictures from the Profondo Rosso store that I went to, which was the store run by Luigi Cozzi, who is the man who gave us Star Crash and the Lou Ferrigno Hercules, among other things. And it is a store dedicated to Dario Argento, his friend, and horror films. And it's just like, it's a dream. It's amazing. I'd wanted to go there for like 30 years. And I took a lot of photos and we posted those to our main Facebook. So
the envy of many, for sure. It was like, it's a mecca for many people, you know, those Giallo fans.
I'd wanted to go there since I was a kid. Or since I was like in high school when I found out about it when it first opened back in the 90s. And Luigi Cozzi runs it, like this famous Italian filmmaker. We got there a little early and we saw him unlocking the store and walking in, and he's the guy running the register. So and he's happy to talk about his films. He's very excited and sort of touched when you buy like his merch that's there. And I talked to him about film a little bit. I talked to him about the Mahoning a little bit. And I mentioned to him that we had run Star Crash in the past and people loved it. And people keep saying to me, when are you going to run Star Crash again? So he was really happy about that. And as I left, he said, keep showing my film, which I thought was pretty funny.
Amazing.
And while I'm there, of course, Val and I both were like, okay, we're looking for Italian soundtrack albums and we're looking for movies and books.
Yeah, digging for the gold.
And first of all, if you're going to Italy and you're looking to find weird old Italian genre films like I am, I hope you speak Italian, because almost nothing has an optional English subtitle track. And really, why would it, frankly, when you think about it? But very little that I found did. So I held in my hand probably 100 movies I would have bought, and it's probably for the best that they didn't have any English translation. I was able to pick up the first two of the new Diabolic films that were made in Italy the last few years. Danger Diabolic is the Mario Bava film most people know. They started making new ones again a few years ago, and actually the newest incarnation, the newest installment was going to come out in theaters, and they had posters for it everywhere. They had a standee taunting me at the airport, and it wasn't going to come out until like 2 days after we left. So one of the things there was maybe somebody's showing it early. Here they do that. They do these preview fan screenings a week early. No, not so lucky. One of the things in looking for these things is there's a record label I love called Four Flies Records, based on the Argento film Four Flies on Grey Velvet, and they do a lot of cool, funky Italian soundtrack reissues and compilations on LP. And I messaged them. I said, I'm in Italy. I kind of cannily, I said, I'm a big fan. I've traveled from America, and I'm only here for a week, and I'd love to know.
I'll come for you.
What retail shops? I really just wanted to know what retail shops is your product featured in, so I know where to go because I want to buy some. And the reply was, "Why don't you just come to our headquarters?"
Wow!
Why don't I? So we took a taxi to this little unmarked door. Again, I'm going to post about this on social media somewhere, either my page or the Facebook or the Mahoning page or something. We went to this little door that was unmarked, and we rang the bell, and somebody comes to the door, and I said who I was, and they said, "Oh, you can come in, but we're having a meeting right now." Now, lucky for them, I said your secrets are safe because I don't speak Italian, but it was them planning on upcoming releases and listening to tracks that were being remastered and all this other stuff, blowing my mind while I'm going through all the bins of records that they have. And their meeting ultimately ended, and we each bought. I spent more money on records in Italy than I've spent on records probably in the last decade. Like, I don't spend a lot on records, and I
only live once, baby.
I just went a little bit mad sometimes. And they were super nice and super cool, and they helped us like call a taxi. At one point, both guys were on their phones and laptops trying to figure out how they could get a taxi to us to pick us up because it was in the middle of it. And so, yeah, I helped the Italian economy. We both did in terms
how
of
many opportunities are you going to have?
Right. It's all stuff you can't get at home. And unfortunately, like, I found a really great bookstore that was cinema centric, and every book was about movies, and they were about like really deep dish genre titles and stuff, but they were, again, all in Italian only. So I'm just like, oh, it's a book about 70s Italian sex comedies and I can't read it. It's a book about 70s Italian cop films and I can't read it. It's an amazing looking book, which I should have bought anyway, about the Italian spy movie ripoffs of Bond in the 60s with all these posters. It was gorgeous. There are these huge, really expensive books about Italian movie posters. It was unbelievable. So we did all that. We went to film locations. I went to the Maine fountain that's featured in Argento's Deep Red. We went there, and all of the scene in that beginning of the movie where the murder takes place, it all was shot in that one space. So you can walk from place to place, from like shot to shot, and see what it looks like now. So I took 1 million photos, 1 million videos. We went to Venice overnight, which was amazing. Walking around Venice at night, you feel like you're in a horror movie. And you walk around and you're like, I can't believe more horror films weren't made here. And when you see how the streets are laid out in this labyrinth, you can understand why more films aren't made there, because trucking gear would be a nightmare. But it's like you're walking around the whole time, like you said to me when I was sending you pictures and stuff. It's like you're on a film set. Like, it doesn't feel real.
Yeah, exactly.
They love cinema in that country, so there were amazing shops selling vintage and reprint posters. A couple of really great record stores. After a while, I said, we're not going to record stores anymore. I'm done.
I cut myself off.
If I say I want to go to a record store, tell me no. And then, we would be walking and I'd be like, we should look in. We should look, because you never know what you're going to find. We really should look. And Val would be like, you said no more records. I'm like, I know I said that, but we're here and we should look. I found a personal holy grail. I found the original soundtrack to the movie Super Fuzz or Super Snooper or whatever it was.
Wow.
I found that at the Four Flies store, actually. They had some used vintage stuff. And I found a couple things I've been looking for a long time, because I figure, this is a corner of the world where maybe every copy hasn't been scooped up already. So
sure,
I did find that everywhere I went, people spoke English. Everywhere I went, that was a shop or where there were service personnel, let's say, they spoke English very well or well enough for them to deal with this idiot who didn't.
Well, that's a plus. Yeah. So you weren't totally in the dark walking into places.
Yeah.
I felt like a little kid half the time because I was having Val like order my food for me because I'd look at the menu. Yeah. I don't know what any of this is, and do all the talking and things like that. But I did realize that pretty much everywhere will speak English. And even if you don't say anything, they'll say something to you. And if you don't reply, they'll say it in English, figuring it's some tourist. I went to a tiny little bookstore. We were looking for giallo paperbacks. If people don't know, giallo was the Italian 70s thriller horror movie mystery. The early Argento films would be called giallo films. And they call them that because they're based on a series of paperbacks that some company put out that had a yellow cover and some really lurid graphics on the front. And I was looking for them. They're really cheap. They're like finding Harlequin romance novels here. They're like literally like $1 a piece. And some friends were wanting me to find some. So I found a bookstore near where we were staying and I bought a bunch. And Val, while I was shopping, Val was talking to the shop owner about the Mahoning Drive-In Theater in Lehighton, Pennsylvania, USA. And he was really into that. And I wound up talking to him and he was recommending all kinds of film noir films and film noir books to me because he was a big fan of that. It's called the Fahrenheit. It's like a Fahrenheit 451 themed bookstore where they had all these original lobby cards and posters for that.
Come on,
various editions of the book. Yeah, I kept saying to her when we were there, it's like I'm not going to leave the house for about 3 months after we get back. I've spent so much money that I didn't have. And
I've culture overload.
And so we wound up shipping things back because we brought a lot of suitcases, but we were buying so much stuff in terms of like heavy stuff and records, and we kept finding little places to ship things. And I was just given a message while we've been recording this that the final box from Bologna has arrived tonight. So we were going to try to take a picture of all the stuff we bought there. And I realized the only way to do it is with an aerial photo. So I'm going to actually, where I'm recording now is a loft and it looks down over the bedroom. So we're going to try to lay everything out on the bedroom floor and I'm going to like lean out the loft window and see if I can get a photo.
Gosh.
But
that's great.
That's
great.
It's a record lover's dream, even if you're not just looking for soundtracks, a film lover's dream. And I'll try to somewhere, like I said, online, I'll probably go on and on more about this with more detail if anybody ever is going to go there. I know when we posted about Profondo Rosso, several people said, oh yeah, I went there. I was there last week. I was there last year. They're posting their own pictures. So it is really a mecca and a destination for people. And it's a beautiful country. The food was great, if anybody wants to know. Although I said when I left, if I don't have pasta and pizza again for a couple months, that's okay. They really love cinema there, so there's so many film festivals and film institutes and film museums. It was really incredible. I would love to go back. We saw a lot, but we were moving at a pretty good clip. Like I was really pretty exhausted when we got back, and then not but a few days after we got back, we hustled ourselves off to Philly for an Exhumed Italian horror marathon.
Keeping it going.
Yeah,
just
like I just left this place. and Val had brought back some candy and some goodies for people, so she was handing it out to friends, letting them have Italian chocolates. And the guest of honor at this screening was a woman who, as a child, was in she was in a Lucio Fulci movie, House by the Cemetery, and another film called The Great Alligator River, and she's all grown up, and Val was offering her some chocolates from home and things like that. So it was I don't want to hog the whole show talking about this, but it was amazing. And if you find me or us online, there'll be a lot more revelations to come. If nothing else, photos of all the cool media that I bought.
Yeah, it was great living through your social media posts, yours and Val's, and just seeing all the cool stuff, the connections you guys were making. It's incredible, And
the TV there. Okay, so I didn't watch anything in the theater. It was the longest period of time I've spent, I think, in my life that I can remember that I did not watch a movie in some form. Because I figured I couldn't understand the movies in the theater. Nothing is subtitled in English. American movies would play in English, but it's like I don't want to go all the way to Rome and watch the Marvels.
Sure, I get that.
A waste.
Right.
But the TV channels we would turn on, we love spaghetti westerns. We love Italian crime films. I love the goofy, dopey Italian comedies that were made in the 70s and 80s. And there are channels that just have nothing but that. So there was like and no, I call them a spaghetti Western channel. For them, it was the Western channel, but it was 70s Italian Westerns. And I couldn't understand it, but I just love the style of those. There was one called the Westerns and Peplum channel. So it was either a Western or a sword and sandal movie. There was some weird sleazy Caligula ripoff movie that played one night that we watched some of that was just gross and wonderful. There was one of those goofy Italian comedies about a funny looking short guy and some tall statuesque woman who knows kung fu. I didn't understand what they were saying.
That old bag.
It was still funny, you know? So I kind of sort of watched movies, but I didn't really like see anything beginning to end while I was over there. But I realized while I'm there how much I really love Italian cinema of like the 60s, 70s. And like, even there'll be places where there are photos on the wall of like Monica Vitti or Alberto Sordi, or I found a cinema that has a statue of Toto, who was not the dog, Toto, who was one of the big comedians across from this old cinema. So I took a lot of pictures of theaters that I found there. And I do a movie review thing I've done for a long time. And I've got an Instagram page for that. So I've been posting the theater photos there. It's a country I've seen on film forever, and to finally go there was like, walking around in a movie. But I can't wait to go back.
Yeah, like an absolute dream.
That's great.
So cool. Such a cool experience to have, I always joke with Nance, I was like, we're going to use our off season to get some culture. I was like, you actually did that.
I can.
I'll say he did.
Val's the expert, but I can certainly kind of give tips and some pointers if anybody's going to go. We went business class, which I normally never would, but Val ponied up for the tickets to fly first class and in style, because it's a 10-hour flight and there's like no legroom in most planes. And we wanted to be able to get a good night of sleep on the plane on the way over. It's the coolest in-flight safety video I've ever seen. It looks like a really well-shot film, and it's the only in-flight safety video I've ever seen that features kung fu and curling.
I heard that right?
Kung fu and curling.
You never know what you're going to get. You never know what you're going to get.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all I'll say on the matter.
Well, for us, we were able to button everything up at the theater. We were able to celebrate, as we always do at the end of the year, with our annual crew party. I gotta say, not having you and Val there was very strange.
It was
it was.
It's the first one of those since I was a friend and volunteer that I wasn't able to go to, and it just felt weird.
It's a huge celebration. As you guys know, we're all about traditions here at the Mahoning Drive-In Theater, but it's something that we've been doing literally since year one. We will get together either a week or 2 weeks after the season ends, and we'll just get together the people that made the magic happen at the Mahoning lot. That's from our amazing crew to the artists that volunteer their time and their work, to vendors, to diehards. It really is a collection of all things Mahoning brought together on one night. We had a really great time. How was it for you, Jeff?
Yeah, it was fantastic. All the after-season parties, I think, are fantastic. Just thinking about them right now over the past few years, several years, and they're all great. They're all fantastic. The fact that Mark and Val were missing this year, that was very unusual, but I have to say everybody that was there had a great time.
Yeah.
It's always a unique feeling, because it's everybody who works there, but you don't have to do anything,
Yeah.
Right.
There isn't that pressure of, there's a show to do, or, I have to make sure blah, blah, or what if something goes wrong? It's like the most relaxed we ever have there, because
everybody can,
right.
Everybody can relax and be themselves.
And it's really great. We were able to do a nice bonfire like we always do. It's a potluck scenario. So over the years, there are certain dishes that everybody looks forward to. And I say I can't end the year unless we get Sheila and Diego's empanadas, which made their appearance again this year.
Did you have Michael Gingold's beef stroganoff?
Gingold wasn't able to make it.
He heard I wasn't going to be there. I figured, what's the point? Yeah.
That's But we had some new additions this year as well. People showing off their culinary status, I guess you could say. But it was really great. We went all the way through the night, a lot of us. We were able to go out and celebrate in the morning as well with a little bit of our final farewell to the lot and to the crew. So it was really, really great. And as far as buttoning up the theater, what goes into that? I know we may have talked about it before, but on your end, Jeff, what has to get done when the season ends?
Now, it's good to do it every year like this because some of the folks out there may not have heard the older podcasts, but every year the water has to be shut off. The lines have to be blown out with compressed air so that there's no water left in any of the bends, anywhere that could freeze and rupture the pipes, because some of them do go underground. So they've got to be blown out. Now, this year they did something different for the first time. And I mean, since I've been there in 2001, this is the first time, instead of blowing out the pipes completely, they put antifreeze in all the lines.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know if they were getting sick of using the air compressors or they were breaking down too much or something like that, but they don't have them anymore. So what they did is they put antifreeze throughout the water pipes to mix with. Now, first they drained them as far as they could. So there's not that much water left in the lines anyway, but then they pumped in the antifreeze, which will give it like a 50-50 mix or a little bit more of antifreeze, and they should be fine. I just thought it was different. I'm like, well, why? What happened to the compressors? And, well, we didn't like them that much anymore. And I do know in the past they had trouble sometimes. 75 pounds per square inch. I mean, that's pretty good pressure. But sometimes they had trouble getting to the very ends of the water lines with a good amount of pressure. So this time they did antifreeze, and I think the results are going to be the same. I think the pipes are very well protected. And
Excellent.
then, as far as the booth goes, we want to take out all the sensitive electronics that really shouldn't be there during the winter because it gets below freezing, and there are some capacitors in the electronic equipment. Most capacitors have liquid inside of them that will eventually freeze if it gets low enough. So we take out all the circuit boards, all the removable circuit boards. We take out the lenses. We take out the intermission reels. Anything that shouldn't really get to below freezing temperatures, we take all that stuff out. And then we also take down the big antenna. The AM, FM antenna also comes down and gets put inside so that you don't get ice and snow, and then it melts, and then it runs down inside and then refreezes. You don't even take a chance with that stuff. You take it inside.
And on my end, I was able to get everything buttoned up really quickly this year. That was the great thing. Mama Beth is like on her A game. She actually wasn't able to make the crew party either. Unfortunately, her father took a fall and she had to take care of her dad. But not having her at the party was a really strange situation. Yeah. But she got that stand looking tip top. And just like you've always told her, Jeff, the better it looks going out, the easier it is coming in. So it'll just make her job that much easier as she comes back and we come back for the 2024 season. But I was able to bring in anything that's outside pretty much. We move it on inside, from the cones to the tables to the, lawnmowers, to anything you can think of, cones. And then the digital booth, of course, we clear out that digital booth, just like the 35, of any sensitive equipment, getting all that stuff out and stored in the off season. And it's amazing. We're coming up on our 10th year of our partnership and going retro here. And it's nuts. Like the amount of time it took us to button up and close up this year, it felt like record. Like, man, are we getting good at this or what? But we really do. We have a well-oiled machine when it comes to closing the place down and getting it ready for its slumber.
And
exactly.
For anyone who would like to visit the lot in the off season, be aware that we have placed 35 strategically located landmines throughout the field.
That's right. The security system always works.
Just drive by on the outside, because honestly, when we come back, we don't even remember where we put them. So it is that is sort of, I wouldn't say initiation is an ugly word, but whenever we have new hires, it's just like we put the metal detector and shovel. And
but that's something worth mentioning. I mean, we have great customers. We don't have any problems with that. But we do have cameras strategically placed to watch the place when there's nobody there. And we have live people that actually drop by and check on the place at least several times a week. So we're good and covered.
Get down! It's a super soul show. 4 Blackbusters all on one big show. Blackbuster number 1, Black Mama, White Mama with Pam Grier. Number 2, Black Caesar, the godfather of Harlem. Number 3, George Stanford Brown in Blackjack. And number 4, Blackula, deadlier than Dracula. Remember, all 4 films are on one big super soul show. Rated R, under 17, not admitted without a parent.
We are in the mode now, actually before we started recording, of plotting and scheming for the 2024 season. It happens almost instantly. And even during the active season, we start talking about some ideas that we got going for the next year. But we have a good amount of time. We just had, 1 down, 5 months to go. Am I right, Jeff?
Yep, we just passed 1 month down and 5 to go. Yep.
So in these 5 months, our plan is to massage that calendar. So when we start releasing those events, it sits oh so well and just knocks your guys' socks off. And there's some, of course, that you guys can expect to make its return. Every single year, we like to keep with some of our annuals, but it's also about pushing that bar a little bit and trying to jump that bar from the year before. And really the stuff that we got brewing is it's looking great. We cannot wait. And on top of that, we spend the off season doing a lot of promotional events. Being that we are seasonal, that gives us a good amount of time to get out there with the public, which I absolutely love to do. Whether it's at the horror conventions or the comic book conventions or the punk rock flea markets. You guys will see us out and about over the next couple months, slinging flyers, selling t-shirts, shaking hands, and kissing babies. Or is it the other way around? I don't know.
Kissing hands and shaking babies. We were asked to leave that one convention due to that, but
yeah, it's unfortunate, that poor baby. But yeah, a lot of fun for you guys to look forward to. Of course, the podcast in the off season and the Patreon in the off season. They don't go anywhere. Oh no. In fact, we like to add new elements there. We were just talking about a fun off-site event that we are trying to put together for the Patreoners. So those of you guys that are not on the Patreon yet, I gotta say, it's the perfect platform for us, being that there is so much material to share on the socials that it gets overwhelming. We've talked about it in previous podcasts. How much of the personality do you show versus just straight promotion? And the Patreon is really designed to flex that personality as well as give you the inside dish of the business. It's just the perfect model. I feel so lucky that we have something like this, and the perfect way to kind of keep in touch with our diehards.
It's kind of a living archive in a way, because if we find like really old things related to the Mahoning, we'll post them there. I do this thing called Flashback, ideally every week, where I take old print ads for the Mahoning and talk about what we ran, we being whoever was running it 40 years ago, 70 years ago, and talk about the movies and a little insight into that. And everything that goes on at the theater, as much as we can, I record that and post it there. So any intros, if we get video intros from celebrities, actors, directors, what have you, if we ran it at the theater, that is archived on the Patreon. I've recorded the majority of the DJ sets from this season at the theater. So just like you're sitting in your car listening to the DJ sets.
That's been so great.
I recorded, and we have some recordings that you had made years ago that I'm slowly going through and putting up there too. So I'm trying to put those up. My idea right now is to put them up on the same day of the week they originally happened. So on a Friday at 6 p.m., you can hit play and act like you're at the Mahoning, sitting in your car waiting for the movie to start. And there's a lot of those. So those are going to be, I built up such a backlog because it just gets so busy during the season that in the off season, hosting, if not every day, at least 3 times a week, new stuff to the Patreon. So it's fun. It's a fun creative outlet for several of us, actually.
Yeah.
That's another reason why I love the off season is, sometimes it's hard to find the time to even breathe during the on season, but the off season does allow us the opportunity to flex the creativity a bit and put those pieces in place that allow us to be creative. And, beyond the creativity, it also allows us to hone in a bit on the aspects of our business. We were talking a little bit about lot rentals, things like that before we started recording, and just certain things that we really love doing at the theater, finding better ways to offer them, finding ways to promote them and get them out there to the world. As you guys know, especially listening to this podcast, it's like It's an ever-changing business, and we are more than open and willing to pivot and try some stuff out. So we're really excited to try some stuff out for this year for sure.
Yep, absolutely.
Mr. Projectionist, stop the show. Here's great news you ought to know. We've just got a shipment of taste-thrilled treats, all tip-top quality and delicious eats. There are hot dogs and popcorn and candy galore. There's soft drinks and coffee and a whole lot more. So direct your steps to our refreshment stand to enjoy the finest snacks in all the land.
What else we got going on, Mark?
Well, I wanted to find out, because I like to learn, more than anything else, about the Skowhegan Drive-In and our relationship with the Skowhegan Drive-In. I actually went to many years ago in Maine, and they closed recently after being open for many, many years. And they contacted us about perhaps receiving some material from them. And Jeff, take it away.
Yeah, I've known Don Brown for a long time. And it's such a shame as far as the closing goes, because there for several years it did well. But where he's at, even with digital, even with doing first run, it was hard to bring people out the last couple of years. He just was always remarking to me how it was kind of going downhill, and he was trying to hang on and do the best he could. And it finally just got to the point where, and it's not like he's up in age either. I mean, he's got some gas left in the tank, but it just became such a problem getting people to come in up there. And who knows how people think. I don't know if they don't realize that they had something special, or if they just grown tired of the place after all these years. But it's just such a shame, because he finally had to give it up. This was the last summer that it's going to be open, because he's selling the property. He closed early this summer, even before Labor Day, because the folks just weren't coming in. So now he's going to sell the land. And of course, the people that are interested in it, they don't want a drive-in theater. They don't want nothing to do with it. So something else is going to go in there. So the screen is being dismantled. I believe if it's not done already, it's going to be very shortly. The screen is going to be dismantled. The only thing the new owners want is the building. They're going to keep the concession building. I don't think even Don knows what they're going to do with it. It's obviously not going to be a concession stand anymore, but they're going to keep the building, but everything else is going. So we were able to get, because we're always looking for spare parts for our stuff, we were going to get a couple of spare rectifiers, a couple of spare lamp houses, I believe a spare processor, sound processor. We're also getting another grill in case Beth has room for one. Now, we're not sure about that, but we will have a spare in case we need one. We're getting his grill. What else are we getting? Oh, we got all of his intermission reels, and they're 35 millimeter. And I was so grateful for those, because they are period appropriate. They're from the 50s and early 60s. Awesome. And so and so now we have a really nice selection. I thought we had a nice selection before. Now we have a really nice selection of old intermission reels. A couple of them are black and white, but even the color ones are very old. And so I'm so grateful.
Did you get a chance to run any of those this season?
Yes. Yeah, he brought those down first, even before he closed, because he's digital, so he couldn't run them anymore anyway. So he brought those down early. So yes, if you noticed some throughout this last season that, I never saw that one before, that was probably one of his.
Yep. Some gems he brought
too. Down. Yeah.
Some gems on there. And I love whenever we play the classic trailer reels, because Jeff takes the time to inform the audience where they came from.
Yeah, the intermission reels, yes. And, they're going to hear more often, oh, this one comes from the, usually I say the Diamond State Drive-In. There was a drive-in in Delaware called the Diamond State Drive-In, which makes perfect sense. It's known as the Diamond State. Well, that's where those intermission reels started out, because Don Brown ran the Diamond State Drive-In. And those reels are actually from there. Then when he lost the Diamond State through no fault of his own, because the owners didn't want to keep it anymore, he got the Skowhegan up in Maine. So he just took the intermission reels with him from Diamond State up to the Skowhegan. So if anybody throughout the season heard me say, oh, these come from the Diamond State Drive-In, that's those intermission reels. They actually started at the Diamond State.
Yeah.
So, those are his. Those were Don's.
And it's such a heartbreaker whenever any drive-in theater closes. And like you said, he had an incredible run when it comes to running drive-in movie theaters. And there's really nothing that you can do to put your finger on why it didn't work out for that area or that one, you know? It could be so many different things, but it really does hurt. Things. Yeah.
Like when the Mahoning was first run. We did great when I first started there in 2001, first run. And this has nothing to do with 35 or digital. I'm just talking first run, period. And back then it was all 35. But we did great. We did fantastic. Pirates of the Caribbean, one of the best franchises we ever had at the Mahoning. I'd sock away 10, 11 grand every night. It was fantastic. Yeah. And then for some reason, maybe it had something to do with the new indoor theater down the street, which, by the way, is now gone. We actually outlived that. But
maybe the streaming services, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. It just gradually started to fade. And nothing that we did any differently. We kept putting on the same show. But for whatever reasons, the same thing at the Skowhegan. For whatever reason, people lost interest.
Yeah.
Maybe it had something to do with us not being as familiar with the social platforms that were coming along at that point. Maybe we didn't jump on it fast enough. That's very possible. But it did fade. And then when Virgil and Mark came on, why they kind of took up the social platform end of it, and I held down the 35 millimeter end of it. And Virgil, of course, is my film agent now because he's very good at it. He deserves it. And it started picking up. Like I said, the first year, 2014, was a roller coaster. It was up, down, up, down, up, down. But then 2015, she started on an incline, like a permanent incline. Got a little better every year, little better every year, little better every year to where we are now. And we are all dedicated, believe me, to keeping it that way.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. Yeah. And we know, how much love and passion and just downright work it takes to not just revive a situation like this, but to run it, So the amount of things that can come to the plate for somebody is it's kind of endless, but
right.
We do thank
and that's
him.
Why, and that's why we have managers. That's why myself and Virgil, we delegate, because you can't do it all yourself. It's impossible, even for two people. That's why we have managers. We have Mark, we have Sandy in her area, we have Beth in her area, we have a lot crew, which is kind of an area in itself. So all these people have management positions because one or two people, you can't do it by yourself. You can't. Not and do it the right way. Not and do it the right way.
Which we did for a while, when we were running the tight system, it was a lot on us, a lot. So, bringing in the group management business model was the greatest move ever. It allowed us to really open up the umbrella and also hyper focus on those things so we were able to do them that much better. So,
we had to do it in order to expand. We had to do it.
And incredibly grateful for the incredible managers that crush it every single year.
Amen. Yep.
And it reminds me, I just saw that the Santee, who we did an interview during our owners series, they'll be shuttering come the 31st of December. So they won't be moving into 2024, which is sad to hear.
How much do you know about the story? Do you want to relate that?
It's an interesting story because their official statement was today saying due to declining attendance, they won't be continuing operation anymore. It's just one of those things where the family decided it was time to not be a drive-in anymore, which is a shame. Apparently they do have the people in that community have another drive-in that's close by. But if anybody wants to hear, our conversation, if you just scroll back through our episodes, it was one of the ones we did last summer, interview with the
He was so great too.
It was a really fun show.
But they cite loss of customers, high costs of the business, competition with streaming services, so they're no longer able to afford to stay open. But
And let me throw one more thing into the mix, because this happened a couple years ago at one of the drive-ins down south, which, as you know, the ones down south are open 365 days a year, basically.
yeah,
What happens is some of these owners get to the age where they can't physically run them anymore. And I'm kind of approaching that point, but I'm too stubborn to give it up, because I just won't do it, because I love being there. But the point is, some of the owners have nobody to turn to. Where I've got, Virgil and Mark and these great managers that we have, there are some owners that the kids aren't interested, the family doesn't want it, stuff like that. And they basically have to sell it, even if it's to a Walmart or a Turkey Hill or any kind of thing like that, because they just have no choice. There's nobody else to run it. Nobody in the family's interested, and they can't keep it anymore. And that's just as big a shame, just it's such a shame.
oh, without a doubt, And when we came in, that was a big part of the kind of thought process and model that we put in place is, this is something that needs to be able to survive for another 75 years and can't
Absolutely.
be totally reliant upon any one person, So that's
Right.
the beautiful thing about the kind of structure and management system that we have now is, God forbid, Jeff gets sick, I get sick, whatever the case is, there are more than enough people that know how to jump in and fill those shoes and wear that coat in an amazing way. So that's another plus too. I didn't think about that if he had somebody to pass it to, it might not be the case.
Right. It was okay back before I got a hold of the business, because at that point I was just the projectionist and the manager. I ran every film that came through there. I had one night off a week. That was a Tuesday night. And so somebody would fill in at Mike's indoor theater, and Mike would come down and fill in for me so that I could have one night off a week. But other than that, I ran every film that came through there. That's fine until it gets to the point where you're the only projectionist that there is. Once Mike was out of the picture, I was it. So I knew I had to train somebody, and even that took a few years to do. But I finally did train somebody so that if I ever got sick, we're out of business. There was nobody else to run them. And that can't be. That can't be.
And that's always in our head, and seeing these stories, of drive-ins closing, it always hurts. It always hurts, especially the positions that we found ourselves in over the last 10-year run together, and beyond for Jeff, being that he's been in this industry for so long,
Since 1978. Yeah.
Absolutely.
A snow cone, please.
Cut. What's with this snow cone bit? The word is water.
But I want a snow cone.
Now let's try it again. Now this time stick to the script.
Okay.
Action.
Water, please. So I get water. But where you are, you can get snow cones. Bring me one, will you please? Any flavor.
But yeah, as far as anything else to kind of button up the theater, now we kind of just go into off-season mode of working on the promotions, working on the calendar. Is there anything else I'm forgetting?
No, I don't think so. I think you've got the off season pretty well nailed. It's mostly you and I getting together, sometimes just the two of us. Sometimes
that's worth mentioning for sure. Every Thursday we get together, yeah.
Right. Usually every Thursday we get together. We talk about what's been going on, what's coming up in the business, what we're going to do next year. Later on, we'll have some of the managers with us before the new season gets here. But mostly it's meeting and planning. And when we have a niche market like we do, where we show retro and classics, that kind of stuff has to be planned just because of the availability of guests or prints or whatever. You kind of have to meet during the off season so that you have a successful next season.
And the beautiful thing is, we do learn so much every single year. The business changes, the atmosphere in general changes. So, naturally there's little things that we shift, but I love going in and hyper focusing on little elements like we talked about earlier in the episode, where we can, even though we have no time in the world during the season, we can focus in on something and say, hey, how can we offer this better? Is this something that we can, turn the screw a little bit and make it a little bit more efficiently? So things like that. And, like you said, naturally bringing in the managers, getting everybody's input as far as rolling into the new year it's exciting. I love this time of year because being able to work on this calendar and put things in place, finally be able to add some more people we've been wanting to work with over the whole entire season and find a place for them. It's incredibly exciting.
Absolutely. It definitely is. Trying to do this on the fly would be very difficult. Again, I think of our neighbors down south where the drive-ins are open all year round. Try to imagine our drive-in open all year round and yet having to plan ahead. It would really be burnout city. So I'm glad we are where we are. And I know we can adapt. If for some reason we had a drive-in down south, I know we could do it. But I'm glad that we have that break where we don't have to push ourselves as hard.
Yeah. And you've said it many a times. We've echoed it many times on the podcast. Having that break really does allow the fan base to miss it and appreciate it and not have it be a situation like some of our closing drive-ins where it just becomes part of the landscape and you forget about it.
Right. Exactly. Give them a break. It even gives the customers a break, and then they have something to look forward to in 4 months, whatever.
That's right. Well, this has been a lot of fun, guys. It's so good to be back in the saddle and putting out some new material for the fans. Again, can't say enough about the Patreon. If you guys are missing us or looking for a great way to support us in the off season, the Patreon is the greatest way to do so. Mark, why don't you tell them the link? You don't need to give them the whole breakdown.
Sure. It is patreon.com/Mahoning Drive-In. And as Virgil said, it is a way to support the theater financially that helps us out because there is traditionally has not been an income stream in the off season. And there are expenses, tail end of the season expenses, and there are expenses going into the upcoming season. And we have, our film library storage and our extra equipment storage. There's various fees that we have to pay around, and the Patreon helps offset that, which is greatly appreciated.
Right. Electricity is ongoing. Yeah.
And we try to give back in Patreon many, many times over the value that anybody pays for Patreon in terms of content and interesting things. And I'm the one who manages the page, and I want it to be I want it to be the kind of thing I think would be worth paying for. So don't think I'm sleeping on it in the off season.
No,
it's
there you
what
go.
I do in the off season, really.
There you go. Yeah.
And when we started it, the idea was like, let's try to build this community even further. And it's been a humongous success in that aspect, in that we know these people first name basis. We truly all love to gather together. We're always looking for new fun things to do together. So if you're a film fan or a Mahoniac, as Gene likes to call the Mahoning fans, be sure to jump on in and stay tuned for all the fun coming up. And I guess on that note, Jeff, take it away, my friend.
Ladies and gentlemen, thanks again for coming out tonight to the Mahoning Drive-In Theater. We hope you'll come back and see us again real soon. The exit is on the right-hand side of the screen at the front of the field, and most importantly, have a very safe trip home. Good night, and God bless you.